This is Pat Baker, and let's go ahead and continue our discussion on using files in Java. And this short video note will be looking at writing out to a file. We'll be looking at streams again, in other words, sequential access to file, but instead of reading sequentially, we'll be writing out to a file sequentially. So that means we'll write the first line and then the second line and then the third line, etc. So what we're going to be talking about is an output stream writing out to a file. And you're going to notice that our output file looks and acts a lot like system.out. So you'll see a lot of similarities there. So how does my Java application write out to a text file? Just like we looked at with reading in from a file, writing out really just takes 4 steps. And we're going to look at those 4 steps by looking at some code for our example that we've been looking at with candy calories. So I created a new class called Candy Read Write File because it's going to show us reading from our candy calories and writing out to a report file. So I literally just took the code from our previous example and popped it in here. And this is just going to read from candy calories right now and write it out to the system.out. So let's just make sure that's working as anticipated. And it is. It's writing out to our console. And just for a quick review, the first steps are making classes available. We're creating an input object and associating it with our physical file. We're going ahead and reading the data here. And we're using the in-file property has next line that will return true as long as there's something else to read, and then we closed our files. So we're going to add to that because we're going to read from one file and we're going to write out to another file. So I got a little illustration so we can take a look at that and then we'll code it up together. So here's a little illustration I made. I just stuck it in Word. So here's our candy calories. This is the file that we're reading from, and we're just reading a line. We're not doing anything too snazzy with this. And previously, just with our first demonstration, we were just writing this right back out to the console. But now what we're going to do is we're going to write it out to a new file, and the file is going to be called Candy Report. So the first thing we're going to do to this file is we're going to write out a nice little header here that says this is our candy calories report and an underline. And then we're going to read each line from our input file and then write that line back out to our output file. Same thing, read a line, write it out to our output file. So we're reading in from this file and we're writing out to this candy report file. What you don't want to do is read from this file and also write to this file, okay? So make sure that you're reading from candy calories and writing out to candy report. All right, so we're back in our code and I'm going to leave the comments that we had from reading from a file, and we'll just add to those because we're really going to do both of those. We're going to read from a file and write out to a file. So here's our input file. We also need a Java object that can handle being associated with an output file. And we're going to use, whoops, that's not what I want. Let's see, we want to have let me see what I got here. So we're going to create an object that's a print writer object, and we're going to associate it with this physical file. All my files have got to be in the same package here. So they're under the source, and then the package name is chapter 10 files, and then the name of the file. One kind of sticky thing with Eclipse is it doesn't want a / before the SRC designation. If you're running on a Mac, students have told me the best thing to do is just copy the whole path for the file. So that's the next step. At this point, OutFile or Candy Report is opened up and it's ready for us to write to it. So we've got that string line here. That's what we're going to read into. But before we read our data, let's put some nice headers in our new output file. Notice how that looks just like system.out, right? So Candy report, Candy calorie report, I think. Okay. And let's put the underlines under it. And we can check this to see if this is working. Well, maybe we'll check it at the end so you can see it all at one time. Okay, so we're going to put those 2 lines as a title or header in our output file. And we've already got it open. So step 3 as far as writing to a file is write data out to our output file. And it's called Candy Report. So it's going to look very similar to what we did when we did our system.out. Well, we'll just write it as our example showed. So out file is the name of our output file object. And we're just going to print line. And we'll go ahead and just print the line back out right now. And then we can go back and we'll make some changes to it if you want. Okay, so we also need to close our files. Let me show you what happens when you're writing to a file if you don't close the file. So it looks like I've got no syntax errors and I'm writing it. And let's go ahead and refresh. And the Candy report has nothing in it. Okay, it opened it up, but there's nothing there. Because when you're writing out to files, it will not post to that file until you close the file. So it's waiting for you to close it. It doesn't know if you're going to add to it someplace else, so it doesn't post. And that's a very important step, closing the file. So let's run it again. And let's look at Candy Report. And there you have it. You've got your nice header and then the information that you wrote from the candy calories. So really, that's all there is to it. In fact, I even think writing out is easier than reading in because print writers look just like system.out. Okay, so we're going to, in the next demo, go ahead and show you how to separate the data that you're reading in. But right now, you've got everything you need to go ahead and do that next activity with the other example, and hopefully this helped out.